This blue 12 minus is called Delicate Relic.
This was a really interesting slab route requiring a lot of technical balance. There's also a pretty scary dynamic move off a sketchy slab surface. The first half is what I think to be the harder half, as the steep volumes are pretty unforgiving. Also, the employees told me the bolt holes are intended to be off, as tempting as they are to use. Here, I'm trying to get my right foot as far left on the starting volume so that when I step into the next volume, I have an initial center of gravity closer to my left foot. It's important to get the left foot further away from the wall when leaning in to get that extra bit of leverage. The fifth volume is a relatively better sloper than the fourth, so once that's established, there's slightly more freedom of movement to utilize the arete. However, it's pretty difficult to move the feet from this position given the surfaces to bear down on, making the next sequence even harder. It starts with a very precisely positioned inside step that should be pivoted counterclockwise as more weight is shifted onto that foot. This is followed by a high left foot that needs to receive the weight shift while bearing down on the steep fourth volume. And now for the crux. You see that steep volume in front of me? I'm going to have to step off that horrendous surface to launch toward the opposing wall. I recommend setting up with the left foot as far right as possible without sacrificing stability. The only holds I can pull off of are this horn and a small chip. It's not much, so a lot of it is going to have to come from the feet. This really is one of those moves where you have to disregard the sense of security and safety and just go for it. There are so many opportunities to fail in the first half with all the technical nuances, so I'm usually pretty nervous at this point. Now the pressure's on to do the rest of the route cleanly. This foot swap was purely to set up my right foot to end on the lowest big hold in order to better pivot to a right lead. This next sequence is a very balance-heavy rockover into a left-handed mantle. Really small detail, but a slight hip lean to the right helps enough to lift the weight off the left hand. This is a very precarious palming and stemming section, as the chips are angled sloping away, making them a bit more slippery than I would like. What worked for me was focusing on keeping as much of my weight in the corner that's available, allowing a better locked-in push. Don't be too hasty on this last section if you're on the shorter side, as you might need a slow, controlled pivot.